What's up, everybody? My name's Bryce, aka DubsNotSubs, and in today's video, we're going to be going over the top 5 manga that I think are underrated. These are manga that are going to be available in English for you to read, because, let's be honest, like, you can find a Japanese manga nobody's heard about. It's not that hard. I mean, here, I'll list off one. Shadow House. How many of you guys even know what Shadow House is? Kuro. How about that? I'm just trying to pull things out of my ass right now. I don't have exactly... I didn't look these up beforehand, but yeah, it's really easy to find Japanese manga that you guys haven't heard about, but I want to find English manga that you guys haven't heard about. And in this order, I'm going to go from most popular manga to least popular that I think that these guys are, or these manga that I've picked out are. I have 5. There are 2 digital, 3 physical. But without further ado, let's get right into this video. Alright, first off, with the most popular manga that I think you guys haven't heard about, and if you haven't, definitely check this out. The first up, we have Dimension W by Yuji Iwahara. This actually did get an anime adaptation, that's why I'm definitely putting this one at the top, so this is the most popular one that I actually have. Well, there's another one that I think is probably about the same popularity as this, but this is a series I never really see too many people talking about. It recently ended with 16 volumes. The story centers around a man named Mambuchi, who is set in a futuristic world in 2072, where the world is discovering, or they discovered a new dimension that's called Dimension W, like the name implies, and this dimension is used as an energy source for the world that ends up becoming dependent on, and discovered by a man named Dr. Urizaki. And he's important because he's already related to the entire story, but I'll get into him into a second. And the other main character is a girl named Mira, who is actually a robot, which is connected to Dr. Urizaki. Like I said, he is very important to the story. So one day, he's been kicked out for a while. Now, there's a whole stuff that goes into it. I'm not really going to go into it as a spoilers, but he gets kind of rejected, and Mira is created by him, and she is told at one point that she has a purpose, and she's not really Dr. Urizaki doesn't get the chance to tell her, and she becomes up getting intertwined with Mambuchi as he's trying to he's a collector who chases down illegal coils, which illegal coils are the thing that in Dimension W that are the things that control the energy of the Dimension W, so things can work. Like, you put them into, like, dishwashers, robots, and anything. It just powers them up. It's basically like an electrical, like a battery, power battery that converts the energy into something usable. And Mira ends up having one in her, and that's why he chases her down. But they end up becoming connected, and they end up teaming up, where Mambuchi is just a collector trying to get illegal coils. And since Mira is such this interesting person, or that he brings her back to the person who's her boss named Mary. They investigate her. There's a lot more that goes into what goes on, but they end up becoming connected and just kind of teaming up in a sense. And Mira is trying to figure out why she was actually created by Dr. Urizaki and figure out what her purpose is. And that's what the story basically goes on to find what Mira is trying to do and why she was created. This is a seinen sci-fi adventure action fantasy thing. It's darker than more shows, but it isn't like extremely dark. It's just takes a definitely more serious turn to things. There's some elements in here that do get a little bit darker, but overall it's an absolutely fantastic series. It is so good. There's so many things that the story does right, especially the art, the characters themselves. The storyline goes very well, and even though, like I said, 16 volumes, they were supposed to get 19 from what I've heard, so it does make sense why the volume 16 there's like 1 or 2 parts in the ending that are rushed. Obviously, that's what's going to happen. There was like a character that was underdeveloped, but again, what are you going to do when you lose 2 volumes? Overall, it was still a fantastic read. It's such an interesting look into the future, and this like new energy source that you get to see is so cool, and how he actually takes this energy source and makes an absolutely fantastic adventure out of it. How we end up getting connected to Mira, her connections to Mambuchi, Mambuchi's connections to her, the whole story behind Mambuchi, his the actions, the fights themselves are so cool. This character named Loser, which is he's a criminal out there, and there's a lot more that goes into him. He's one of the coolest characters, and we get to see people like Mary, who is Mambuchi's boss, how she's related to this whole thing. Everybody has this overall arcing connection with each other, which could seem a little forced, but it actually does make a lot of sense. A lot of things don't seem forced in the sense of why they're all connected, what this whole purpose is, what Dimension W is doing to the world. Everything that goes into this story is absolutely fantastic. A definite read if you haven't checked it out. It is my favorite sci-fi series that I ever read. It is so good. But anyway, guys, let's get into the next volume. All right, for our next volume, I'm going to read the synopsis, and then I'm going to get into the actual talking about it. This is Tegami Bakke by Pez, and this is available on the Shonen Jump Vault. It is an absolutely fantastic series, but let's get into the synopsis of Volume 1. This is a 21-volume series, so the synopsis goes, Ghost Suede is on his last delivery before his big promotion. In the outskirts of Yodoka, the darkest area of the Underground, Ghost is surprised to find that the package is a young boy named Lag Cian. Lag has been traumatized by his mother's abduction and is due to be delivered to his aunt. In the remote area strife with Gaishu, Lag and Ghost face dangerous journey that inspires Lag to become a letter B. The story centers around Lag, who is in this first volume a young kid, and he ends up getting connection with Ghost, and this begins to make him want to become a letter B, like it says. So this story centers around, I'm going to go with the world first because I think this will make the most sense to kind of build up the story. So the world is actually is lacking a sun and is being lit by an artificial star, which goes in later in the story why it's created and what it actually is. So the star basically lights up the entire city called the Underground, and as you go farther out away from the center of the star, it gets darker and darker, and in the darkness lies the Gaichu, which are basically just monsters in the dark that try to steal people's soul. In a sense, I believe it's been a little bit since I've read it, but I believe it was souls. I could be wrong, but they steal their inner person that makes them a person and kills them. So letter B's are the world's mail delivery service, and as they go deliver mail, they also have to go through these barren wastelands and through the dark and defeat these Gaichu as they're going through with these special guns that they have, that allows them to use their power through this extra energy that the people have. It's a fantasy. You gotta jump to some part, and they each have their own unique thing. That's kind of the most shonen battle aspect of it. They each have their own specific way of using their gun and the way it shoots, the way it works, and they have their own personal name, which goes into so kids can shout their name and pretend they're them. It works for the Shonen Jump aspect, but the story itself centers around Lag, like I said, and when he becomes a letter B, he's trying to re-find his mom, and he's just delivering letters, and you get to see the story unfold as he grows up older and older and rises up higher and higher in the letter B service in the place called the Beehive, which is the center for letter B's. There is more that goes on in the story than what you think. There's a bit of a corruption and mysterious aspect that goes inside the letter B, or the Beehive. You get to see what letters mean to people, especially in a time where this is a time that's set in kind of the past. Obviously, it's in another world, but it's set in a time where you don't have electronics. People send mail, literal mail, just to send letters. How this means to people, how it affects people, what these people, the letter B's, are carrying, why they're doing this, and what their purpose is for actually delivering mail. You get to see higher ups, how the world has affected them, how the artificial star has affected them, what's really going on in the world, what Lag really is, what his real purpose is. You get to see this girl named Niche, I believe her name is, which ends up becoming Lag's sidekick. One of the best characters I've seen. She is a lolly, but her character is she's such a cool character and such a cute, I don't know how to describe her without sounding weird, but she's such a cool character, and she's one of the best parts of the story. Once you read it, you'll know she's so cute. She has great moments. She's just overall a really, really cool character. You get to see Ghosh's sister and just how she intertwines with the story. And overall, the ending itself, I always have to harp on the endings because all these are finished, but the ending itself is, I usually don't like bittersweet endings or more sad endings, and it's kind of a spoiler a little bit. Overall, it's not 100% sad and 100% happy. It just didn't happen. It just didn't happen in the way I thought it would and what was going to happen. But the ending itself was so unique and so good, and it was one of the best things I've read, and one of the best endings I've ever read, because it doesn't feel it doesn't feel in a way that just everybody gets what they want or everybody doesn't get what they want. It doesn't feel overly sad, overly good. It feels like something that not everybody wins, not everybody loses, and it really feels like it's just a very good way of completing the story, and it wraps up very nicely. The ending, I can still remember the final panel. Absolutely beautiful of a story. Check Tegami Bakke out if you can, but without further ado, let's get on to our next book. Our next story is Alive, written by Tadashi Kawashima and Adachi Toka. The art is done by Adachi Toka. And if you realize or kind of recognize the name Adachi Toka, is actually done by my favorite manga of all time. She's done my favorite manga of all time, and that is Noragami. But this story was her first work, her first artwork, and Kawashima only wrote this. I've talked about this before, but I have to talk about it again, especially in Underrated Manga, because I never hear anybody besides myself talk about it. So this story is centered around Taku, Megumi, and Hiro here on the back. 3 friends in high school, and then one day in Japan, or on a global scale, a weird suicide virus hits everybody, and in Japan alone, 13,000 people die from the book. That's what it says, and it ends up being called Nightmare Week. But as the story develops, you get to see some people got affected by the virus and didn't actually kill themselves, and the people who don't kill themselves ends up gaining power, and they get sent on this mission to kill everybody who doesn't have the actual power that they got. So the story ends up stemming from there, and you get to see Taku and Hiro here, who both got affected by it. Megumi doesn't, trying to struggle with this concept. Taku ends up beating this kind of thought process, but Hiro, on the other hand, doesn't get so lucky, and then something ends up happening where he kind of snaps, and it kind of works in like the Eve situation where Satan tempts her and kind of lies to her and ends up doing it. So there's another boss or somebody who influenced Hiro to actually do what happens, and this ends up the rest of the story where Hiro ends up doing something and going back to the person who tempted him and like deceived him, and becomes a villain of this story, and Taku becomes the person who's trying to search down Hiro and save him, because he is just one of those people who's overly nice and wants to save his best friend. And there's a lot more that goes into it, and as this journey goes on, he gets to meet other people who got affected by the virus and have powers but aren't influenced by the actual power to kill other people who don't actually have the power. There's a bigger arching story that is going over the entire story, and as it develops farther and farther, you get to see more and more what the big picture is and why the suicide virus happened, what's going to happen in the future if Taku doesn't do a certain thing, and just the characters, Nami, and there's another character, I'm not sure if his name's Yukin, but Yukin's from Noragami, and I'm not sure what the other character's name is. It's been, again, a little bit, but Nami is the girl who ends up teaming with Taku, and 3 people end up teaming up, and there are other people he meets throughout the story, and they end up having to battle the enemies with like Hiro and like that group. There's more people that go in there, and they're trying to defeat him so they can basically rescue Hiro before they actually find out what the bigger picture is. And then halfway through the story, once you figure out what's actually going on and why the suicide virus happened, a big thing happens in the story. Like, kind of seems like the climax of the story is reached. It slows down and it starts the second half of the story, and I believe this is 21 volumes also. I could be wrong. It's 20 to 24 volumes. I don't remember exactly, but we get to see what the second half of the story, which is definitely the better half of the story, because it stems away from Japan itself and ends up working with like other world, and you get to see the worldwide impact and the other world powers that are working in on this, and like there's just a lot more that goes into it once the second half starts. The first half is still really good, and I think it's a really good setup for the second half. But overall, the story is absolutely fantastic. It's one of my favorite reads. This is a digital-only series. I have volumes 1 through 4, but they're out of print. Like I said, they're by Del Rey. Actually, I didn't think I said that they were by Del Rey, but this is by the time when Tokyopop and Del Rey were doing their thing. Only 8 volumes got published in print form, so just go to the digital if you're going to read this. I definitely recommend this. I believe the first 6 volumes are available for free if you have the Comixology Unlimited plan. But I definitely recommend this series. It's absolutely a fantastic shonen battle manga. The powers are a little bit basic, I'm not gonna lie. That like they all each have their own unique power. Some dude has fire, some dude has ice. You get to see as they go on, but the powers themselves may just build up the battles, but the story itself is what makes it so unique. Why the suicide virus happens, how everybody's connected, what their purpose is, what the worldly impact is going to be, and just how it all builds up and crafts itself. It's done at such a nice pace. The art is really good. I love Aji Toka's art. It's not as good as Noragami, because obviously this is her first work, but it's still absolutely fantastic, especially at certain parts of like when big moments happen, you get to see her art shine. I absolutely love this story. I think it's fantastic. Definitely read if you like your shonen battle manga. But without further ado, let's get to our next title. So for our second to last title, we have Maiden Railways by Ashusima Nakamura. These are a one-shot right here by, I believe, yeah, it is by Dimpa, and this is a one-shot where people are all centered around, it's all centered around connecting in the train stations in Japan. It's all centered around usually like love stories. It's not always love in the sense of a relationship, but you get to see love through hobbies, like breakups. There's a lot of things, just see how like the train station connects everybody in Tokyo. And towards the end, the last chapter in this one shot, it connects all these stories into one in like a very unique way. and I love it so much because it wraps it up so nicely. This is a josei, so the characters are drawn a little weird, I'm not gonna lie. They are kind of got like that weird lengthy like neck, skin, like really thin look to them, but overall I think this is a really well written, and for like a collection of short stories, and the way she's able to connect them all together is absolutely fantastic. Just for like a one-shot quick read, I wanted to include at least one shot, like at least one shot in this thing, because I don't feel like they get enough praise overall. But that story is absolutely fantastic, where you get to see just daily life, how people are connected, what like once like popular area, people that you aren't connected to, and people you don't even know, and what goes on these trains, how people's stories intertwine, how people see people they don't even know, what goes on in their life, all centered around like one central location, which would be the train station in Japan. But you can relate that to anything around the world. You can, or like any like certain place where, say, you go to, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like a destination that a lot of people go to that's not a store, and it's just kind of like a location. You could say like a concert. It's not the same as that because it's like something that happens every day, but everybody, all the different lives and stories that connect into a concert, and all these different people going for like one thing, like people going to the train station so they can go to different places, whatever, like people going to a concert so they can see the same band, and just everyone has that one commonality that relates to them, even though you may not know you're not going to know everybody at the concert, you're not going to know everybody at the train station. It just all connects, and we're all like centered. Without being connected, we are connected in a certain way, and I just think it's a really unique look at that, and I think it's a very, very good story that wraps up nicely in just one shot, and it's a very, very nice read. But without further ado, let's get on to our last title. All right, for our last title, we have a series called Sickness Unto Death. This is released by Vertical. It is out of print. It came out in what? I mean, this says November 2013 on the back.
The arms of the angel.
This says 2013 right there, so I'm assuming it came around like then. I think it was like a 2010, 2011 book. I'm not 100% sure. But this story centers around a kid named Kazuma, who's going to college to become a psychiatrist. And one day, for one of his training exercises, or like for his first case, like to learn about being a psychiatrist, he ends up getting a client called Emeru. And now Emeru is haunted by this monster that's in her life, and we get to see what Emeru is like, what really is this monster, what's going on in her life. Just, there's a lot of things that this series covers in only 2 volumes. That's the entire thing right there, 2 volumes. But Emeru is such an interesting character when you get to see what's really going on, who she is, what the monster is. You get to see Kazuma's relationship to her, how Kazuma feels about things, and this whole story is basically an overlook about what makes you, and what makes a person, what counts as being alive. And it's a very interesting aspect to think about in this story, centering around that brings such an interesting thought to the table, and such an interesting story that I still haven't forgot. It is one of my favorites. It's made such an impression on me. I bought it complete random on eBay because it's out of print, like I said. I don't know if, actually, it might be in print. I'm assuming it's out of print. I don't know, but you can probably find this for pretty cheap. The art itself is okay. It definitely takes a more adult look into this stuff. It is a super, super interesting story. One of the most unique stories I've ever read in my life. There is so much about the human condition that goes into this, and what makes you, and I love that kind of stuff. Like, what just makes a person, because it's such an interesting thought to have. Or not to have, but to think about and try to discuss and make sense of something that none of us really get. Like, what makes me alive? What makes you alive? And all this kind of stuff. And just the story, the psychiatrist, and like the inner workings of Emeru's mind. What's going on in this story is so, so good. It is one of the best stories I honestly have ever read. I never talk about this series because I never think anybody knows about it. But honestly, Sickness Unto Death is maybe one of my favorite sleeper hits of all time. This is number 1 because I also think nobody knows about it, but I also think it's the number 1 underrated manga. I've never heard anybody talk about this. I found this completely by chance. Just when I was buying, I used to buy like random manga volumes all the time, and oh my god, the story itself is so, so good. I love it so much. It blew me out of the water when I first read it. I have never heard anything by these artists, or like by the art and by the artist and the writer after that. I've never looked them up either. Hopefully, I mean, I might look them up after this, now that I've like rekindled, because I kind of set it down, put in my thing, had the memory of it, but I never really thought about checking out their other works, or even if there were other works. But anyway, guys, I do hope you enjoy this video. If you do, make sure to leave a like, comment down below if you enjoyed this video, and if you have any manga that you want me to read, or a video idea that you want me to do. So, I always try to read them, and I always appreciate your comments. But as I say in every video, I'll see you in another video.